Sweet, man. So what's up? Let's talk. I like that there's no format.
Yep. And so, dude, the here's the thing, man. I was talking to my wife. I was like, oh, I got the podcast coming up at 5. I've been working on trying to get this screencast stuff going, and I was like, I don't want to be late. It's Sean, and she was like, why don't you just sit down and tell him you're nervous? And I was like,
God bless America. You mean
I was
you
like,
mean she listening to Sean Whalen saying, "Why don't you just tell the goddamn truth"?
yes. So I figured
Right.
that
I'll
this would
say
be
that.
very fitting to say, yeah. First thing I want to get on the table is I'm extremely nervous
Don't be.
because, for a couple reasons, right? Like I've watched your videos a ton. I joined the Den 3 months ago, and you've posted in there quite a bit, and working a little bit together last week. I'm starting to be less nervous, but
Yep.
I'm excited about this. I don't know what this podcast is going to be like, but I'm so excited about it.
I just did a podcast 20 minutes ago, 30 minutes ago,
Sweet.
and I didn't have a topic. Well, I have topics like 24/7 running around in my brain, but I
Yep.
didn't have a specific topic, and it just flowed. And I did a 15-minute, 20-minute solo cast, and just I think it's going to be fucking fire. Just because it's value. Like you just add value. You got the backdrop. You just add value, and you know what value is by being in the Den.
Yep.
Can't go wrong with that, bro. Ever.
So Sean Whalen is on the Hunting Product Guru podcast, and Sean, I know you've got your own podcast because I listen to it. So the Hunting Product Guru podcast is based on, and I messaged you about this, like it is hunting products, but it's more about the people and behind the brands. And
Right.
so, you're running for Congress.
I am.
And I thought this would be so fitting because we're in almost, I think, like our podcast is all, I think there's 4 or 5 states that haven't downloaded it yet. But the number 2 state for the Hunting Product Guru podcast is Utah. So I was like,
Bunch of damn patriots around here.
it's like, I tell you what, we need to have Sean on the podcast. You're running for Congress in Utah. So that honestly was the biggest, adding value to you. I wanted to have you on the podcast so we can talk about that, but also wanted to talk about your relationship that you have with, your family and everything that brings you to who you are today. Because, and if there's anything that's not on the table to talk about,
Dude,
hit me up, man.
everything's fair game with me, bro.
That's awesome.
You know, there's nothing off limits with me.
So you mentioned you're 38 and you just got your first Harley. I watched you guys do a big Harley tour. Talk to me a little bit about that.
It was really cool, man. I actually was in. I got invited to do a speaking gig in Phoenix with my buddy Colby, and he put on Meltdown in the Desert, which was I spoke at the first one, and Colby's he's the salt of the earth, man. He's a freaking rock star. I love Colby, and so I said, dude, I'm in. Anything you do, I'm in. So we were there, and when I walked in, there was a gentleman there named Steve who was with Microsoft, and Steve had a Harley Davidson shirt on. And so, I love talking to people, and it's not a political thing. It's not a business thing. I just love fucking people. I love talking to people. I love networking and meeting people. And so we met, and I said, dude, Harley. I said, I just bought my first Harley. Well, Steve and I became love at first sight, and we talked for an hour about Harleys, and he showed me pictures, and I showed him pictures, and he's up in the Northwest in Seattle, and I'm like, dude, let's go do a ride. And that one conversation turned into Steve putting together what was going to be like a 9-day ride. We ended up shortening it up a little bit to basically 4 days of just pure epicness. And so my buddy Mike actually shipped his bike out from New Jersey to my house in Salt Lake. And then he flew out. Mike and I jumped on our bikes and rode from Salt Lake, from my house in Draper all the way to Seattle in one day, which was like 960 something miles. We just burned. We just fucking put it on cruise control, and we just burned the entire way up there. Then we met up with just a stellar group of guys, and we basically the next morning we headed out, and we went through Idaho and into Montana and Glacier National Park and all the wildfires, and then Coeur d'Alene and just did this huge loop and had just an amazing time with some really, really, really good people. Open road, God's country, little shitty bars like with live music. I mean, dude, it's as cool and as American and as just fucking amazing as you could get. You know what I mean? Hanging out with buddies, riding Harleys, drinking beer, talking about everything a bunch of freaking assholes do. It was fantastic.
It was awesome to follow along on Instagram. You did a lot of stories and stuff like that, and those were really cool because I remember y'all being in restaurants, and we didn't bring enough bail money for Colby and yada yada yada. It was just a good time. I loved following it.
I'm gonna need to bring way more money next time, not for me, but for spending purposes, just to get Colby's ass out of jail. Different story for a different day.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, guys, if you're listening to this, I strongly urge you. We're recording this live, and Sean right now, I'm watching him smoke a tobacco pipe, and this is epic. So make sure you go check this out on YouTube. Kind of wanted to plug that because they need to see this. Glorious smoking the pipe there.
Talking hunting and smoking pipe and Harley Davidsons. Life doesn't get much better.
Yeah, that's right. Speaking of hunting, you actually just posted, it's probably a couple months ago. You got a bow, you got a target. You and your kids went out shooting. What is that like? As a dad, at getting to share that with your kids.
I didn't grow up that way. I grew up in the city. I grew up in Washington, D.C. The closest I ever came to like wildlife or wilderness was when the petting zoo came to town in the JCPenney parking lot, and they had donkeys that ran around in a circle, and you sat on them and you took a picture, and like there was a little pet pig and whatever else. So moving to Utah, spending 2 years on a Mormon mission up in Montana, like really connected me to the outdoors, to hunting, to the wilderness. And now being a dad, I was kind of like, all right, when my kids turn 8, I mean, there's no magic age, but that's when they're going to hunt with me. And so last year, my son, and the year before, he turned 8, and we went hunting. And there's hunting for me it's a very spiritual experience. Period. Like just me, I mean, killing an animal, it's a very, very special, sacred experience for me. Just because we say hunting and we shoot and whatever, but it's like knowing that I took that animal's life and then fed my family with it. It's really, really spiritual. It's really cool. And I was excited to share that with my boys when they got old enough. And so 2 years ago, we got our first deer together when he was with me.
Wow.
He hasn't hunted himself yet, but it was an incredible, incredible experience. It was him and my fiance's son, and they're both like little turds, 8 years old, and it was a really dramatic experience because, long story short, we brought our bows to camp with us. And the night before, we were shooting our bows, which, again, I think everything happens for a reason. I have a brand new GMC truck. We're going to sleep in the tent. My fiance's there. The boys are there. My daughter's there. I just brought everybody, but the boys were going to go hunt, and she helped us at camp and the whole thing. Somehow they locked my keys in the car. I don't know how it happened because you have a brand new truck. It's not supposed to lock. Anyways, it locked. This morning I got up and I walked about 5 miles to where I knew that I had service, cell phone service. I called, said, hey, can you unlock my car? I've got the, whatever they call it, OnStar. They couldn't do it because it was out of range, whatever. Anyways, long story short, I ended up busting out a window, and I had already scouted our spot. We already knew where we were going to go, and the sun's starting to break, and I'm still not in my truck, and I'm 35 minutes from where we were supposed to go, and I'm in a shitty mood now. I just busted out the window of my brand new fucking truck so that I could get inside it. I said, boys, just get in, let's go. We start driving. I'm like 10 minutes down the road. I'm like, fuck it, we're pulling over. We pull over, we get out. We literally walk down maybe 100 yards, and the sun's starting to break. There's like a couple little meadows and whatever, and I'm like, let's just sit here for a minute, because I'm pissed because I knew where I wanted to go. I had scouted some big bucks, and so he said, screw it. So we're sitting down, and the boys, and I kid you not, I swear, this is just how the universe works. It's a beautiful thing. Not even 5 minutes later, we hear this rustling in the bushes down across from us, and I'm like, cool, whatever. And I kid you not, big buck walks right out in front of us, about 150 yards or so. It was about 170 yards to where I could get a clear shot, and I ended up hitting this buck. The sun was barely coming up. As I shot it, I mean, the boys were here. I have a really cool video which I could give to you. You put on here if you wanted to add that to it.
That would be awesome.
It happened so fast that I didn't even have the chance to get the camera out to film me shooting it. Like, it's right after I shot it, and I'm all amped up, and the kids are like, "Oh my gosh, we just shot it! It's right over there!" And there were so many hunters that were around us that as the sun was like literally breaking, I shoot. I knew that I hit it. I saw it go down. It's about 170, 175 yard shot. All of a sudden I start seeing orange like everywhere. There's hunters everywhere. There was 2 groups of hunters that were at the deer before I even got to it.
Whoa.
So we shot it. We're like making sure it's good, making sure it's down. It's not moving. I'm scoping it, the whole thing. We get to the deer. There's 2 other groups of hunters. Anyways, it was just an incredible experience because it wasn't where I was planning on going. It wasn't how I planned on the morning being, but being able to have that first hunt with my son was unbelievable. And so we've been since, and the bow thing actually happened because I was out on a date night with my daughter, who is a huge animal fan. I think you've probably heard me share this story before.
Oh yeah.
Now with on date night, we always go to the pet store, we go to dinner, and we're driving along, and she turns and she's like, "Dad, I want to get a bow." That was all she said, and I'm like, "Arr!" I freaking flipped
We're going.
the truck, drove straight to Cabela's. I swear to God, I swear on my children's life, like, I drove straight to Cabela's. I'm like, "Sweetheart, we're getting you a bow." We walked right to Cabela's. I got all the guys in the bow. I said, "Listen, we're not leaving here until we have her sized, fitted, outfitted. I want her to have a bow." And it was such an incredible experience. We get halfway through fitting her for the bow, and I'm like, "Well, shit, I don't have a bow either."
Boom.
So I was like, "Fit me for a bow." So we both end up getting a bow. She's learning how to shoot. She loves it. She now wants to go hunting. Since then, I bought my boys a bow, and we have our target set up in the backyard, and we'll shoot up to.
Yeah.
We can go about 70 yards in my backyard, and it's so much freaking fun, man. It's so much fun. So hunting is definitely something, one, that I love, that I'm very passionate about, that I enjoy. But being able to share that experience with your kids, I mean, any man who's ever taken his son hunting and killed an animal will attest to the exact feeling, emotion that you have that just amplifies when you're with your posterity taking this animal's life. Oh, it's unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
So I have 2 kids. I have a 1-year-old daughter, and I have an almost 4-year-old son. And whenever my son was, whenever we found out we were having a son, the whole hunting scenario, quite honestly, was the first thing that ran through my mind. I was like, man, I'm going to take this boy hunting, and I hope he loves this, And then the whole doubt thing kind of entered my mind about a year and a half ago. I was like, what if he doesn't like hunting, because I've been busy working. I have like an hour and a half commute into work sometimes. There's a lot of time he spends with his wife or with my wife, and she's shopping. So sometimes he likes going to Target, or he likes going to the store, and I'm like, no, dude, let's.
What if my kid ends up just being a total pussy?
I'm like, it was running through my mind. Like it was something that was literally running through my mind. And I had an opportunity to go take my son hunting for the first time in 2014. So he was just about to turn 3. Like it was literally before his 3rd birthday. And in Texas we don't have a law where they have to wait a certain age to go with you. But they can't hunt, until they're obviously old enough to hold a rifle in some states. And, it's like 13, 8, it varies different places. So we're sitting in the blind. And it was such a special moment. My dad was with me, and he was holding my son. And then here I am holding a rifle, and my son's, dude, here in Texas, there's deer galore. So we had our odds of shooting a deer were pretty good.
Good, yeah.
But if we didn't have like 25-mile-an-hour wind coming at our face, I'm pretty sure those deer would have heard my son bouncing around the blind, because it sounded it was just up and down, crawling around the blind, man. And so whenever it came time for that doe to come out, I shot her with my 25-06 that was handed down to me from my father.
That's awesome.
We went to recover the deer, and my son was just like, he was elated with just like, you did it. Like I didn't tell him that this is what we were going out to do. We were going to harvest a deer. I said, do you want to go hunt? And whenever we harvested a deer, he was like, he connected those dots. So it's amazing how smart they are.
Oh yeah, it was really cool because I mean, again, I think some guys just hunt just to hunt, but and it's fine. I mean, it doesn't matter why you do it or what your connection is to it. I just always found from the time I shot my very first animal, like it's a really spiritual experience for me. And so, I go up and I spend, a moment in whatever you want to call it, prayer, solace, gratitude. And it was really cool to experience that with my boys.
Now, do you get sad?
No, my very first deer I did.
Yeah.
My very first deer I shot it, and it was still breathing when I got to it.
Yeah.
I'm very much, I want like one shot, one kill. That's what honestly I'm nervous about bow hunting is I haven't been yet. But I know myself, like all of the animals that I've dropped with one shot. They haven't run. I didn't shoot them in the ass or whatever.
Yeah.
But the very first deer that I shot, it was still breathing when I got to it. And so you could, blood coming out of its nose. And I'll never forget, I felt really bad.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, fuck, man. And, it died within a matter of seconds of me getting up there to stop breathing. And I felt kind of bad. But then I like kind of moved into that mentality of like, this is going to feed my family. And then that first deer experience is, I think, what really connected me to hunting and understanding like this is very primitive. It's very primal. And we connected that way. It was like, I got all my cool shit and then look at all my gear and I got my Sitka this and I got my thing and I got my 30-06 and my cool pack and all of the cool, Cabela's kind of hunting shit.
Yeah.
You get all amped up and ready. Well, then you kill it and it's like, oh,
whoa,
like I killed this animal.
Yeah.
And so it after that first hunt, man, it really, it became I don't want to say a passion. I mean, I'm not a Cameron Haynes or some of these other guys that are just total freaking badasses. But I absolutely love it. And I love the experience that we have all year eating it. And I think that's what's really cool for me is like, we have a freezer full of elk and a freezer full of deer and knowing like, I got that, right? Like knowing that 200 pounds of meat, 300 pounds of meat, that we'll collect every season or however often, whether you get a cow and a whatever it is. Yeah. Knowing that's legitimately feeding my family. It's a really cool experience for me. So it's, I wanted to pass that to my boys and they definitely have that. And that, that second year when I took them and had that experience, like you could tell they got it, right? I mean, awesome. They saw the dead animal that was still warm, that was still there. They watched me cut it open. They watched me gut it. They watched me,
the whole thing
did with it. And the whole time it was just a cool experience to be with them, to explain that to them, versus just being this, let's just go smoke an animal and freaking throw it in the back of the truck and bring it home. I think it really it connects me, and I think it connected them, which I think was very, very powerful. It was powerful for me.
That's where I was going with that question. And like I said, this is unscripted. But one of the things that I was wanting to ask you about talking about hunting was, it's come up before in conversation, just, as I conversate with other people. I've had somebody, write on one of my pictures and they said, why do you smile when you kill an animal? And I have to sit down and explain to them that there's a lot more emotion behind that smile than just being, my foot on top of this animal, keg stand style of, just being extremely happy. I was like, no, you don't know, the first emotion I go up to when I see an animal, just me personally, is gratefulness for that animal's purpose here on earth and what it's going to do for me and my family, because we literally, the only thing I can't stand on animals is liver. I'm just not a liver fan.
Dude, I love the liver.
Gosh, I cannot.
I bring a separate bag just for the liver. I bring the 3-gallon Ziploc bag. We'll literally go back to camp. I will cut up that liver, put it with some onions. Oh my gosh. Just send me your liver. Throw it in a freaking Ziploc bag. Send it to me. I could eat liver all day long, man.
Yeah, that is the only thing. Growing up, my parents, they had this rule, like if we're cooking it, you got to eat it. If you don't eat it, then you're not eating. Don't cook anything else. And that was the only meal growing up that I went without eating that night. I was just like, I'll just starve. I can't stand liver and onions. But yes, the whole smiling whenever you shoot an animal, that's something that's been a big controversy for, me with Hunting Product Guru, is just, people not
Well,
seeing past that.
say to take that one step further, I mean, people are like, "Oh, hunting, it's so bad, and it's so this, and you're killing an animal, and how do you
Yeah,
find joy in that? And you're going out and killing animals." And I'm like, dude, are you a fucking vegan? Because I see you eat hamburgers and you go to Chick-fil-A. Where the fuck do you think all this meat comes from?
right.
Like, I actually will take an animal that literally will die in a matter of seconds after I shoot it versus literally having some of these cows that will never sit down because they're so squished in there, that are pumped full of drugs and shit. You go down to your local Kroger or your Albertsons or your fucking Walmart and you buy a steak. That's the shit you're eating. My shit's been eating grass its entire fucking life.
It's been free.
I literally killed it, brought it down the mountain, processed it, wrapped it up, put it in my freezer. I know what the fuck's going into my body, but all these people are like, "Oh my God, hunting's so bad and it's so mean and it's so whatever." Be like, it's the most humane way of processing food on the planet.
It is. And a lot of those people, they're too scared to try it.
Dude.
Like they're too scared to try venison, and they're too scared to actually go have that,
Yeah.
shot on the mountain.
They should just actually be informed about
Sure.
meat and food, period. Because again, they think that the magic fairy, steak gods just, voila, here's this steak. Well, where the fuck did that come from? What's in that steak? What's been put into that steak? That chicken, the fish. I mean, it's all the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
I could catch a salmon in the wild and cut it up and eat it. Like, yeah, that's been dude, that's a huge topic. I don't care if you hunt or kill an animal or not. Most of you that buy meat from the store, you're buying shit. You're literally buying drugged up shit.
The stuff that's also been colored, like some of the meat that's been sitting on the shelf for as long as it has, it goes through a dye process.
Dude, don't even get me started with that, man.
But so there was one thing that the Guru Nation, as I call it. Well, one thing I kind of want to talk about is something. One of the first images I ever saw of you was the image where you're sitting with your ex-wife, with her new husband and your kids and their kids, and I loved your caption on that picture. And I didn't realize what kind of purpose that would serve in my life until a year ago when my parents gave up a 31-year marriage and they stopped fighting for each other. I never knew what, that caption really would mean to me until as of recently. And just to be honest, like within the past few months. What has it been like for you? What is this, journey like? Tell me a little bit about it. You don't have to go too deep, but just tell me a little bit about it and, what it means right now. Like how liberated are you right now?
Dude, I don't know the context of the audience of everybody that's listening to this, but I bet you there's people that have been divorced or going through divorce or are divorced or contemplating divorce or whatever else. There was the single most, I don't like the word traumatic, but traumatic experience of my life. It was everything just rolled up into one. It was terrible. It was a terrible experience. And I don't blame anybody for it. I made the decision. I did the whole thing. But, we men have been programmed to lie. Like, we've been programmed since we were a little kid to lie. Ever since elementary school, sit down, quiet down, raise your hand if you need to go to the bathroom, do as you're told, get a good job. So we grow up and then we get into high school and then go to college and then get more education and then get a job and do as you're told. And we've kind of sedated men, we've sedated human beings, period, to just live in this sheepish lifestyle. Lions Not Sheep is my brand. It's my company. It's kind of my whole life.
Yeah.
But we've been programmed to act and to be this way as men. And I was that guy. I was the epitome of a sheep. I was very successful at a very young age. I made a ton of money. I thought that was what success was look at the big house I provide for my family. Look at the boat, look at the trips, look at the Disneyland, the whole thing. I was the Disneyland guy. And after a number of years, it didn't do anything for me. It was like almost the exact opposite. I'm like, all right, I got the house, I got the car, I got everything. Like, why am I not happy? And I ended up burning my marriage to the ground. And then there were no drugs, there was no infidelity, there was no cheating, there was no like one thing happened and then we decided to split. It was just these two people just going opposite directions, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. And so it was a really, really dark place for me. And I did what everybody did, what everybody else does. I lied. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And meanwhile, I was literally contemplating suicide. I was contemplating ending my life because I went through that whole process of shit. What did I do? Was this the right thing? Was this the wrong thing? Like, what's going to be the result of my children? And you add all of that stuff into the mix, and it's a really, really dark place. And in that darkness, I found my comfort in being an asshole to my ex-wife, right? Trying to make her feel like shit and feel my pain and experience what it is that I'm experiencing. And then that would make me feel better and made me feel worse. Right.
Yeah.
So we spent a long time in a really dark place. And I ended up hiring a coach, and that coach's very first challenge for me, the very first assignment for me was to write her a letter of appreciation. Now you got to understand that I was hoping I would like say my prayers every day and be like, please God, let this be the day that she gets hit by a bus. Like, I hate this woman. If she chokes on a cheeseburger today, I won't fucking cry. There won't be a tear in my eye. I had some real
tough time. It's a tough time.
Anger shit. And so writing her a letter of appreciation was like, it ended up taking me 3 months. It took me 3 months to write her one letter of appreciation. And she and I actually did a podcast together here a few weeks ago, which was incredible. I'm going to start sharing that more. But
yeah,
I realized that whole experience, like sharing that positive message and telling her why I appreciate her, it wasn't for her, it wasn't for us, it was for me. And I went through a really, really dark spot, and I invested in that relationship, and I started sharing more and more aspects and words of positivity and telling her that I appreciate her. And it became easier and easier to do because I became less and less angry.
Right.
And so, going through that experience and being there in that space, this new outlet was there, which was Facebook, which was social media, which I really wasn't. Believe it or not, she was actually on Facebook before I was. I thought Facebook was the stupidest thing on the planet. Now I'm the Facebook guy and everybody knows me through Facebook. But it all came to be where I spent, months and months and months and months and months and years fighting with her. And then kind of this flip to the other side where I was trying to build this relationship. And it took 14 months for her to ever say thank you, for her to ever say a single positive word back to me. But eventually she did. And, I think that's the test. That was the battle for me. Was normally as a man, we're like, well, fuck you then. If you don't want to say thank you, then fuck you and eat shit and die, right?
Yeah.
But so I kept doing it.
Was that 14 months? Just extremely battling?
Dude, it was hard because she ended up meeting a guy, and then I had beef with that guy, and then, it was like she ended up getting married and ended up having a baby, and it was like, it was hard, man. It was terribly, terribly hard just because I was so entrenched in my own lies and my own story and my own bullshit. And then, fast forward to where the day that I went to pick up my kids and my daughter comes out and says, Dad, come in and see the baby. And I'm like, no, we've gotten to the point now where I can drive up to the house. Before we'd pick up and drop off the kids from the police station. I now can drive to the house and the kids would come out, and my daughter comes out and says, Dad, come see the baby. I'm like, no, come in and see. And so I said, well, go ask Mom, knowing that Mom would say no. Well, Mom's like, sure. And so I went in and it was like, hey, how are you? Like, I haven't literally seen her face to face or experienced her other than court for the last 2 years. And so I went in and I sat down and kind of small talk. And then my son, God bless him, goes over and grabs the baby and brings the baby to me. And I'm like holding her new baby. And it's like we went from me just being in the house to oh shit, now I'm holding her new child. And it was really, really, really awkward, but it was totally meant to be.
Yeah.
And I ended up, snapping a picture, and I had a couple hundred friends on Facebook, and I was just sharing my journey and what I was learning. And I'd get 10 likes, 12 likes, stuff like that. And that night, I went, when my kids were getting ready, I was sitting on my bed. My 3 kids were in brushing their teeth. I just shared that picture and I just wrote out what was real to me, what was raw, which is like, I never would have thought this would be. I never
Wow.
envisioned this being where we were. You guys will have no idea. You have no clue how dark it really was for me and how meaningful this picture was. And I shared how big of a dick I was. I was like, I was an asshole. I said a lot of dumb shit. I did a lot of dumb things. But, you know, the message was really like, look, anybody can do this. If you're in a really dark spot, just know that tomorrow could be the day that the sun starts shining. And I just hit post. I posted the picture. Didn't think anything of it. Went to bed, had however many likes, 20, 30 likes, whatever. And I woke up the next morning and had the 1K next to it. And I've told this story dozens and dozens of times, but it, like, every hour that day, it was like 10,000 more likes every hour, and it went viral. It ended up having millions of likes, millions of comments,
Wow.
shares. Had dozens of people reach out and say, oh my God, how did you do it? I want you to be on my podcast. And I did interviews with like men's groups and women's groups and advocacy groups and marriage groups and divorce groups. And I kind of moved into this space where, like, you were now this divorce expert. And I'm like, whoa, slow the fuck down. Like, I'm still learning this shit, friends. Right. And so it was a really cool experience because it took a long time. And now we're friends. We're good. I'm friends. I mean, literally right before this, my son calls and he's in the garage with his stepdad, you know, her husband, saying he just won a dirt bike. He just won a fucking dirt bike. And they're like, what kind of gas do we put in, Dad? Because I'm the dirt bike guy and I have dirt bikes. And so we're at a place now where I go over all the time. I see both of them, high five, hugs, and it's real and it's genuine. And it's like getting to a place where you just own who the fuck you really are. Own that you were an asshole. Own the dumb shit that you said. And what really changed for me was I just took away the but. And people say, I stopped saying but. I'm like, I was an asshole. And before I'd say, but it was because she did da, 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 da. And I finally just owned it. I'm like, no, I was an asshole.
You just stopped that.
I did dumb shit. And I said dumb shit, period. And I owned it. And I owned who I was. I owned the relationship. I owned all of it. And it really changed my life. It changed, obviously, the trajectory of my life. I never envisioned having millions and millions and millions of people. I mean, I always had the ambition of, like, running the empire, building a successful business. Everybody, like, has kind of the small ambitions of being famous somehow, but I never in a million years thought it would be like this or it would be built this way. But man, it's so incredibly powerful now where I'm like, hey, can I take the kids out on a date tonight? And we share the kids and share everything and we do Christmases together and apart. And it's really, really, really powerful. It's incredibly powerful for me.
Wow. That is one hell of a story. I love that story is just freaking speechless to me. Like, it leaves me speechless because I don't even understand how you did it, but knowing you now, I can see how you did it. But it's just like taking that initial step of saying, no, I've got to own this. I've got to take responsibility for my actions and know that, any life change that I've had, I've been able to identify that, or I have forced myself to identify once and time again that you can't change other people, and you're the only person that can change.
And this is something I really want to emphasize that I've tried to make part of my coaching and my teaching and everything is like, I hired my coach not because, like, I'm like, hey dude, I'm tired of this fucking marriage thing. Like, this thing's let's solve this shit. Like, I hired him, not for business or this or that. I hired him because I was angry. And I just made the conscious, I got to that point where I'm like, I don't want to be angry anymore. And so it was like, how do I not be angry? And I think a lot of people go wrong because they're thinking like, well, they try and just put a Band-Aid on a gushing wound, right? I'm going to say or do this. And the reason that it took her so long to acknowledge me was because, like most women out there, she was just waiting for me to be a pussy and not keep doing it, which is what we do, right?
Oh, yeah, we give it up.
Flowers, why don't you fuck me every day? You're like, well, because you've been an asshole for 6 months. You work 20 hours a day. One bouquet of flowers doesn't get you fucked every day. It's not the way it works.
Yeah.
It's got to be consistent. It has to be there. And so, I think the thing that a lot of people miss, and a lot of men that I interview with Lions Not Sheep, it's the conversation of knowing, like, you're not doing this for your family. You're not, I didn't do this for her or for my children. I'm going to do everything for my kids. Bullshit, man. You have to do it for you. And I had to become happy. I had to find something of value inside of me to be able to make that shit real, because you can't put a Band-Aid on a gushing wound. If you're hurting inside, if you've got anger or this or that or resentment or daddy issues or whatever the fuck you want to call it, that's the root. Like, that's what I like to focus on with men and with Lions Not Sheep and everything is like getting down to the real root. Like, what's really going on? What do you really fucking want? Not what you think you want, not what the world has told you want,
yeah.
Not how you perceive it to be, but what the fuck do you really want? And that discovery is really hard for a lot of men. And I got to that point where I realized, like, I just don't want to be happy. I identified something I didn't want, which was I don't want to be angry.
Right.
Like, I just identified that I don't want to be angry anymore because it wasn't helping me anywhere in my life. And so, like, that was the mission that I went on, to not be angry. And the result was, the work that was done was really deep shit, which a lot of people are like, she's a bitch. I don't know how you, same thing you just said. I don't know how you did it.
Yeah.
Because she did. I'm like, bro, I got a laundry list of shit that my ex-wife did that would make your head spin.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Head spin. But I realized, like, living all of that doesn't help me. Like it's the definition of insanity, is banging your head against the wall. Me trying to slam her or tear her down or make her sound like a total raging lunatic doesn't help me. Like,
right.
I've got my own shit that I need to deal with. And I think that's what's fun for me, and what I really enjoy the most about coaching and consulting and running Lions Not Sheep, is helping men get down to the root, because that's really where the change happens. And it changed every aspect of my life. It changed my fitness. It changed my relationship with her. It changed my business, just fucking took off. And it was like, we dance around of the hard shit and we play with the easy shit, which is why most coaches in the industry, and you know this from being in the den, like, I'm not a high five and ass pat kind of guy. I'll high five and ass pat you when you need it, when you've done the work.
Yeah.
But I'm a fucking punch you in the face kind of guy, because at the end of the day, that's what most people need. You can go to and nothing against Tony Robbins, but you can go to any of these Tony Robbins things or this thing or that thing and feel really good for a day and be like, oh my God, I'm saved.
Yeah.
But you haven't really gone down into the depths of hell.
Yeah.
To the deep, dark shit. That's what I did. That's where I went. Is I was like, dude, I can't pussyfoot around this. I have to tell real, dark, scary truth if I'm going to get what I really want. And I did. And it was the hardest work I ever did. But that's why I know people that have been divorced for years that are still angry, older people that have been angry for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, get rid of that shit, man. And it has nothing to do with her anymore. It has to do with you.
Yeah.
And most guys don't like to hear that, because we're prideful assholes and we like to blame everything on everybody else. But the second that you actually realize, like, I'm the one that needs to fucking go deep in me, that's power, man. That's where you really, really, really start to change your life and make a difference.
What, yeah, so, Sean was alluding to the den, and he's not an pat your ass kind of guy, high five. He tells it like it is. I had an experience in the den where I posted a video and you ripped into me, and it was awesome. Like, it was a great moment that I got to see, like, hey, I haven't been honest. I haven't been truthful. And getting that reality slapped in my face is, I think, what a lot of us need.
Well, and dude, a lot of people don't like how I do shit and get really offended. I've had people that'll leave the den, or they'll be like, dude, you're a dick or whatever else. But it's like, look, man, I mean, if you're drowning, like, somebody telling you that you're drowning is not going to help you not drown. If you're drowning, somebody being like, hey, here's the manual how not to drown, you should read it. Motherfucker, I'm drowning.
Yeah. Like,
someone needs to get in, jump in the fucking pool, grab you by the fucking neck, and help drag you out of the deep end of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my coach did for me. The very first coach I ever hired, knew that, like, that high fives and ass pats weren't going to help me.
Yeah.
It was like, no, you're a fucking liar. Like calling me a liar and me getting pissed. I would rage. I'd be like, fuck you. You don't know me. Fuck you. And I was that resistant guy. But I knew I was lying. I knew I was lying. I knew I was full of shit. And he knew it too. And to me, that's like the real power of a coach and of a mentor and somebody who truly loves you is not somebody that's going to just like let you skate by. But when they see you lying, they'll call you on it. Not like that, you know, well, and people say, well, there's the diplomatic way. How's the diplomatic way work for most people?
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to fat shame somebody and we don't want to whatever. Motherfucker, you're fat. Yeah. You're dying. Like you eat shit every day. You walk to your mailbox and you're out of fucking breath. Oh, you know, let's just be sensitive to their feelings. Fuck that. You're fucking dying and you're going to leave your kids if you don't get your fat ass in shape.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
no, absolutely.
We can do the high fives and ass pats, but how's that work? Because every single, I mean, dude, there's so many parallels to this, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but like I go to the gym and I see trainers at the gym that will spend an hour with a client, and a majority of the time they're talking or they're bullshitting or whatever, and I'm like, dude,
do the work.
That fucking person's paying you to get them in shape. Like, get them in shape, man. Like, get them fucking sweating. Right?
Yeah.
I'm the same way inside. Like that's how I operate is like sometimes a guy just needs to get his eyeballs ripped out of his fucking head and he needs to be called on his shit. And I think the thing that I really enjoy the most about it, and I think the thing that's connected me to a lot of people is that most people, especially the people that have worked with me, know that I do it, number one, out of a place of love and appreciation, but I was in the same spot.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me really confident and comfortable doing what I do and calling people out. Is I don't call them out to like, oh, see, look how big of a dick he is or how big of an asshole he is or how big of a liar he is. I'm like, no, motherfucker, I want you to get results.
Yeah.
Like the more powerful you are, it makes me more powerful. I don't want to be surrounded by a bunch of fucking pussies. I want a group and a tribe of like men who will hold me accountable. So the more honest you get, the more you can shine that light right back to me and be like, Sean, you know what I'm saying? I don't, yeah. You know, that might be out of, congruency or whatever. But I think that there's a place for that. And I know that there's a place for that. And it's a very special individual who truly lives that level and that lifestyle that can do that. But it's a really magical thing too, when you see a guy hold another guy accountable and it hurts. Truth hurts. Sometimes you're like, fuck that guy. Fuck him. But deep down you're like,
you know you needed it. You know that,
know that
I absolutely needed it, right? That's what you know.
You come back and you're like, okay, I got it.
Uh-huh.
I'm a fiend for that, man. I want more of that. Like I'm on a daily search for like coaches and people and experiences that will push me into the deep end of the pool. It will help me be a better man, because if I go golfing with people that suck, they don't help me get better. But if I go golfing with a bunch of really good golfers, they're going to teach me something I'm going to learn. If I get in the ring and train for a fight with a bunch of dudes that I just beat the shit out of all the time, I never get served up. I remember Court McGee helping him train for some of his fights and him helping me train for my fights. He's a killer. He's a freaking killer. There's tons of dudes at the gym that I could go train with that I could beat the shit out of and go home and be like, aha, I beat the shit out of everybody in training today.
Yeah.
But Court McGee would put the fucking hurt on me, man. He would blast me hard. I'm like, oh.
He made you feel it.
With your mind, you do that every day with people that are pushing you to take your mind there and your heart there and your soul there. You become a better man.
That's freaking. So you just touched on a whole lot there. What has Sean Whalen done? What are you doing now, and what are you going to do? Like,
Jesus, how long? Well, I want my perfect reality is living every second. It's literally living every second to the fullest. And it sounds cheesy, it sounds cliche, it sounds like it just came out of some self-help motivational book, but I truly have written on my bathroom mirror, why not? And
funny story. Sorry to interrupt, but you say why not? this podcast almost didn't happen because I was telling somebody that I was thinking about starting a podcast, and they said, "Oh, a lot of people are doing podcasts. A lot of people in the hunting industry doing podcasts." And I told that Jason Felt, he's also he's the owner of Bowhunter Box Club. He is in the den, and he told me, we started talking back in January, and he said, I started telling him, opening up a little bit more as we got to know each other, and telling him that the podcast is something I was intrigued by and I wanted to do, but I'm not going to. And his only 2 words were, "Why not?" And I couldn't give him a good reason why not, other than what somebody else had told me. And so the first podcast episode that Hunting Product Guru podcast has is called "Why Not."
I mean, dude,
that's cool.
So simple, but it's so powerful because
it is.
I was sitting in I'll answer your question here. I was sitting in Austin, Texas, with one of my mentors and one of my dear friends, and we were sitting there, and he's like, "I'm gonna ask you a question." I said, "All right." And he said to me, "Why would you do anything that you don't want to do?" And I was like, "Huh?" And he's like, "Why would you do something if you didn't want to do it?" I've asked thousands of people this question, and I get tons and tons and tons of answers. Well, I have to work, and I have to do this, and I have to put food on the table, and I have to whatever. And it's like, really? Why would you do something if you don't want to do it? And I was very successful at a really young age. I grew up in a single parent home. I hustled my ass off. I was a multimillionaire by 25. I had what everyone deemed to be success. But I was doing, God bless him, but Gary Vaynerchuk, he's a cool dude. He's a friend. I mean, we talk. I saw him the other day. I gave him a big hug. I don't want Gary's life. I don't want to do what Gary does. I did what he did. I did the 20 hours a day, and that's his life. That's what he wants. That's his mojo. That's his thing, and that's great. God bless him. He's changing the world. He's helped millions of people. But I did that, and I don't want that. And my thing is I will be ecstatic making $1.5 million a year for the rest of my life doing whatever the hell I want to do than making $50 million a year working 22 hours a day, taking a yearly vacation, if that, and really the entire time I'm on my iPhone anyways. And so, what do I do? Where am I going? What do I want to do? I mean, anything that I fucking want, man. And I don't say that to be general or to be bland, but my buddy flew me down. I hang out with very successful people. Why? Because I inject myself in there and I want to be around. And I had a buddy of mine fly me down to the Baja 1000 last year, 2016. Flew down on his private jet, first class accommodations, the whole thing, and he wanted me to help him with social media. And long story short, I ended up watching his trophy truck crosses the finish line, and then he jumps in a helicopter and he goes back and he jumps in the Razor with his 16-year-old son. And him and his son crossed the finish line of the Baja 1000, which is one of the gnarliest races. And I was more emotional than he was, man. Wow. I was sitting there bawling like a baby watching him and his 16-year-old son. And I having kids, I'm like, I want to do that. And I made a declaration on the spot, standing on the podium in Ensenada. I'm like, I'm going to do this with my boy. And sure enough, I came home and I know nothing about off-road racing. I've never done it before. I have no fucking clue. And I started looking and I found a truck and I bought a truck. And sure enough, in February of this year, just a few months after, I was literally sitting in the driver's seat of my race truck coming into the pit, and my son, my 10-year-old son, was standing there with his helmet, with his gear, getting into co-drive with me in an off-road Baja race that we're doing 80, 90 miles an hour in the fucking dirt. And I literally started bawling like a baby, man. I literally I was just crying because I'm like, dude, this is what it is. This is why I do what I do. I could die with tens of millions of dollars and let my kids squabble about it and whatever, but I want to die and have my son be like, I remember literally racing with dad. I want to do that with my kid.
You envision that.
Those are the things that mean the most to me, and that's why I do what I do. what's the next adventure? What's the next thing? What can I do to like just live today to the fullest? Because it's not a morbid thought, but this sunrise that I saw this morning could be my last sunrise. I mean, I'm not trying to be
Yeah.
whatever. I might fucking just choke and die. I might just have a heart attack. My heart just fucking stops. I mean, I'm 38 and I know dudes that are my age that just didn't wake up today.
Uh-huh.
And that's not morbid. That's, I mean, they didn't overdose. They didn't whatever. They just, their heart stopped. They just fucking died. And they had a wife and a kid and whatever. And my thought process, you know, a few years ago after I kind of came out of this whole experience of like my meltdown, my midlife crisis, whatever you call it, I'm like, dude, I'm not working for a check. I'm not doing anything that I don't want to do. And a lot of people have this mentality that they have to grind and gut it out for 20 or 30 years in a job or a thing because they have to do it. It's what they're supposed to do. And to that I say bullshit. I do what I want to do every day of the year. I add value. I run a company. I'm a father. I'm an entrepreneur. I've got multiple businesses. I've won. I've lost. But I made a declaration that I would do what I wanted to do. And I've made more money than I've ever made since doing it. I've had more fun. I've had more incredible experiences with people around the world, with my children, with my family than I've ever had, man. And every single day I want more of that. Every single day I want to go deeper into that like desire of what can I do tomorrow that will be even cooler than today. And I'm not talking just blowing shit up or shooting guns or
Yeah.
flying a private jet.
I
Like,
know what you mean.
how much deeper can I go with my children?
Yeah.
Like, how much deeper can I go with myself? Like, what can I do that will stretch me, that will expand me, that I've never done before, you know? So it sounds really wishful to a lot of people. It sounds like really hocus pocus to a lot of people, but I think there's more and more and more people talking about this. There's more and more people talking like this, and they're very successful people. You know, there's no silver spoon near my mouth. I grew up in a single parent home.
Yeah.
My mom still works. You know, I mean, I had that whole idea. I'm gonna work and then I'm gonna retire my mom and I'm gonna all this other stuff. And she really enjoys what she does, and I enjoy what I do. But I set out every single day to like, and not to go off on this, but like, I'm a very spiritual man. I gave up on religion. Let me rephrase that. I chose like to not be religious. I just didn't believe in religion anymore. I didn't see the benefit. I felt more connected to God and to spiritual experiences like being in the mountains than I did sitting in a box.
Yeah.
I'm extremely, extremely, extremely spiritual. And, I used to pray and I would negotiate with God. I'd be like, all right, God, I got to land this deal. And I swear to you, I swear I'll donate so much money and I'll be such a good dude and I'll be whatever. If you just help me do these things. And if you and it was this negotiation. And I've said this before. You've heard me say this in the den and whatever. Like I get up I live in a beautiful home. I have a beautiful view. And every single day I walk to my balcony and I will stand on my balcony. And if anybody ever like wants to fucking call me out on that shit, I get up at about 5:45 every single day, park below my fucking house and see what happens. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if there's 10 feet of snow outside. I walk outside and I literally stand on my back deck. I stretch my hands. I take a couple deep breaths and I thank God for being alive. And I simply say to him, thank you for giving me this day. Put the people in front of me that you need me to meet and put the words in my mouth that you need me to speak. I'm gonna go freaking put right foot in front of left and just keep moving, and I know that you'll give me the things that you need to give me, and I'll be where I need to be. But I've just chosen to live a much simpler life, and to me, simpler is way better. It's way more fun. It's way more enjoyable, and the idea of working 40 years to then have simplicity,
it's not.
There's nothing appealing about it. But then for all your entrepreneurs that are listening that are trying to gut it all out, they probably read books by successful people. I mean, go read I knew Stephen Covey well. He was my neighbor. He wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the most well-known global books of self-help and change that's ever been written. And even at the end of his book, he says the same thing. He's like, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would have spent more time with my kids. There's not a single book written by a multimillionaire or billionaire or successful entrepreneur man that's like, I would have worked more. I would have spent less time with my family. I would have done, you know, way less of the cool shit that I did. Every fucking book, every one of those
Very,
motherfuckers,
yeah.
same thing. If I could go back and do it all over again, I would have done more shit that I wanted to do. If I could go back and do it all over again, I would have spent more time with the family. So I'm 38. I consider myself a somewhat smart fella. Why not do that? Like, that's in their book. Why not heed that counsel now and choose me and choose my family and choose the shit that I want to do now versus like, well, I'm going to die and the kids are going to split up $50 million in a bunch of apartment complexes and whatever. Like, yeah, but we didn't know who our dad was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got Jake. Will you hand me the one on the right, please? This is actually Jake's work. I'm gonna put a little plug in for Jake. This is one of the coolest gifts, and I don't know. I think I told you this. This is one of the coolest gifts I've been given in a long freaking time because it's got the most sentimental value to me. But after the race in Laughlin, this was Laughlin, Jake did all of our pictures and our videos, but he gave me this, and he had it put it in this fucking amazing frame. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, geez.
But it's an incredible picture of me and my son. I mean, if you just look at it, like it's us standing in front of the race truck, and
Dude.
you know, this is what I do, man. This is what I live for. This is what I work for. Is my boy with a freaking smile the size of New Jersey on his face, and you just see I'm like at peace, man. I'm at total peace, like knowing that he and I. His big thing was that, Dad, I always got him in the races like in the middle of the race, right? Somebody would start, somebody would finish, and he's like, Dad, I want to start a race and I want to finish a race with you. And Laughlin was a perfect opportunity, and it was a short one-day race over 2 days, and you know, he light turned green, and I said, dude, son, as soon as the light turns green, you just got to yell, go, 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 and he's go, 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 and I mean, this is what I live for, man. This is what I work for. This is why I build a business for, is to be able to do whatever the fuck I want to do every day of the week.
Dude, man, gosh. So I've got a tally over here. You might laugh, but it's called Goosebumps, and we're up to 5 right now. And
I thought you were going to say a tally of how many times I said fuck.
No, I'm almost out of journal space. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Man, it's cool. You're getting to give those experiences to your kids while you both get to enjoy them.
Yeah.
And that's what gave that, you know, thinking about that thought, you know, having my son and my daughter and my wife, it's like, you know, as I'm entering, you know, 3 months in the den, I posted last week about how 3 months in the den has changed the course of my life. And just this, you know, one space has changed the course of my life. And inevitably it's changing, you know, my family's right on the other side of this wall. It's changing their lives too. And that's, you know, thinking about those thoughts about like where I'm going and hearing about what you just did with your son. That's awesome.
I mean, the high tide lifts all the boats, man. You know, a lot of guys, and some of the guys listening to this, maybe they think it, maybe they don't, but majority of the men that I talk to, like, there's this idea, you know, there's no nobility in you dying and your kids not knowing who you are. But at the same time, you know, there's no nobility in trying to be the hero either. A lot of guys are like, oh, I do everything for my family. And I'm like, well, so what you're telling me is that you work 20 hours a day, you neglect their football practices and their soccer practices and their choir things to do what again? Like, you're saying you're trying to be the best dad and provide them the best life possible. How exactly are you doing that by working 20 hours a day? Well, I have to. No, you don't. You don't.
Yeah,
You absolutely don't. And this is where you start furthering this conversation. But like a lot of guys, you know, if the plane's going down, there's a reason that the very first instructions that they tell you on an airplane is when the masks fall out of the ceiling, you put yours on first. And most guys that I talk to, they have the idea in their brain like, well, I'd put it on my kids. I'd help my kids first, then my wife and whatever. I'm like, bro, there's no fucking air on the plane. You're all going to die. So at the end of the day, like, being selfish is very, very noble. Now, people are going to shit their pants over this and, oh my God, Sean said to be selfish. I did say to be selfish.
They got to understand what's coming after this, though.
Because when you put your shit on first, it makes you a better man. When I chose to not put a Band-Aid on a gushing wound, but I chose to, like, not be angry. when I chose to go down that path, I was helping me. I was doing it for me, but it helped me become a better father. It helped me become a better ex-husband. Like the more times I put my mask on first and get my body in shape, get my bank account healthy, get my shit square, that makes me a better father. I become a better father. I become more available to do these kinds of things. There's
Absolutely.
no nobility in lying and saying, well, it sounds cool. It's the rhetoric that we've been taught since we were little kids. I do it all for my wife. I do it all. People post on, why do you do what you do on Facebook? What's your biggest why? And they'll post pictures of their kids, or they'll post pictures of this. My biggest why is me. My biggest why is me. I do shit for me. I do what I do so that I can become a better man, so I can become a better father. And the more time I spend on me, and it's this ironic thing is people see me riding horses with my daughter all the time, racing the truck with my boy, shooting arrows in the backyard, fucking around with my friends. What's fascinating is like the more I focus on me, the more I'm able to do all that.
Yeah.
So there's this paradox that most guys don't understand. They're like, well, I got to grind and grind and grind and grind, and then eventually I'll get to do that. That's a broken way of thinking.
I used to think that way.
The more time I focus on me now,
yeah,
the more I have the ability to do that other shit.
Yeah. Well, that was the whole mentality of like whenever you think you're thinking about yourself first, everyone tells you that is selfish. You're right, it is selfish. But what is the product of all that? That is something that I admit it. I am admitting that I was that person. I've posted pictures with my, of my son saying, this is why I work so hard. And it's like, wow, looking back on myself, that couldn't be any further from the truth. I was overweight. Me and my wife were even more in debt. The relationship that we had wasn't as strong. So what was I doing?
It's true, man.
And I remember.
This is why I believe, the Lion's Den is so powerful, number one.
It is.
Plug it, whatever. But this is why I believe, like, what Lions Not Sheep is doing across the world and with men and women and families, thank you, is so powerful because this idea of the king eats first,
Yes.
we coined this and started saying this a couple of years ago, and people fight me on this. Every single time I post this, people are like, oh, my God, it's so blah, 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 blah. That's the worst thing you could do. And this guy and this and this and this, and they try giving me all these bullshit excuses. But the truth is, like, it's real. Yeah. And the more people do it, and the more people start to experience it, the more they realize just how fucking real it is. Like, I eat first. The more full I am, and then just think through the psychology with me. Like, everybody listening to this. If you're broke, you can't help the broke. Yeah. Like, if you're starving to death, good luck going out and hunting and feeding your family.
Yeah. You're going to die.
If you're fat and overweight, good luck, like, being able to keep up with your kids as they go hiking or go on a field trip to the zoo.
Yeah.
Like, I don't give a shit what you tell me. These are all, like, very practical, real examples. Like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice all my money, whatever. Bullshit. Like, if you stop and think about it, like, the more you do for you, the more I do for me, the more money I make. The more money I make, the more freedom I have. The more freedom I have, the more time I get to spend with my kids. The more cool shit I can buy them. The more cool shit, like a race truck. I didn't buy a race truck for my kid. I bought a race truck because I want to fucking race a race truck. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like, when you stop and think about it, this is completely different. It's completely contrary than how you and I were taught since we were little kids. It's completely contrary to our religion. I don't care what religion you are, the whole religion community. It's completely different than what most people are talking about in colleges and in schools. But the king eats first. The more full I am, the more I'm able to go do other shit, which then fills my family.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? My kids don't go to bed hungry because I'm not hungry. The more I feed my belly, the more I'm able to fucking feed their bellies. It's the way it works.
It is the way it works, and it's such a twisted mentality that we come from to understand this. That's what's crazy is even I've talked about it a number of times on the podcast. I've actually name dropped the Lions Den quite a bit because it's been a big shift for me. But just thinking about the way the way I, let's talk about my experience, like the way I used to see things before, the way that I used to feel like this is the right way to look, this is the right way to feel, this is the right thing to say. Meanwhile, it's like if I'm having to tell myself that these are the right things to say, like literally make that choice of like this is the right thing to say, there's probably something wrong with that.
Well, dude, we're copying a broken model.
Absolutely.
And think about, hang on, I just got to plug my computer in really quick. I'm running low on juice here.
Oh, you're good.
We're copying a broken model, and the model that is being perpetuated and taught to us is a model that is being taught and perpetuated by other people that are living the broke model.
Yeah.
College professors, teachers, they're not able to take off and do whatever they want whenever they want. So we're being taught this model that this is how it is and this is how it should look and this is what you do as a responsible adult. Great.
So I think this is probably the best transition point. I want to start talking politics. You hit something that I know. You gave the Den a little sneak peek. I was able to watch it before I joined. And is Jake still there? I don't know if he can hear me, but
Jake's here.
Tell me, that was awesome. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Tell me a little bit of the process of, okay, Sean Whalen, you've done all these things. You've helped change people's lives as with your coaching business. You have Lions Not Sheep. You have the Lions Den. Why congressman?
I'll give you the really simple answer.
Why not?
Which is the answer that is written on my bathroom mirror. Why not?
Hell yes.
I mean, why not? I don't.
How did it come about though? Like how did the notion of I want to run for Congress now?
Basically, I had a congressman here in Utah that stepped down unexpectedly in the middle of his term, and so a special election was popping up. And I just decided, like I did the math on it, I looked at it, I'm like, I'm not doing it, really for the money because I make way more money doing what I'm doing. But why wouldn't I do it? I talk politics all the time. I talk revolution. I talk change. I talk growth. I talk advancement. I talk about all this shit. Why would I not do this? And, it came like, okay, now why would I do it? Well, because I'm good at what I do. I love what I do. I love speaking my mind. I love being real. I love sharing shit. And I do feel like I'm a very effective leader. I'm able to help shift people's mindset into a common way of thinking, common sense versus like partisan candidacies. And I got to do this because this is what this is supposed to, as a Republican, here's what we're supposed to believe and think and do. Well, the simple fact is we got a Republican leadership right now, and I'm not just talking about our president, and we just crossed the $20 trillion mark of our debt. So let's start talking common sense. And I've found that people really enjoy and either really like or really hate what I say, which is great because I'm not trying to sell anybody anything.
Polarity is great.
You create polarity, and it allows people to think, and it allows people to consider something different. And I just looked at it from the perspective of, the day, and I truly believe this, and I said this when Trump ran, I truly believe the day and age of the two-party system is dead. And it's not just going to magically poof disappear. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years for revolution and our, societies through the history of the world. Sometimes it takes hundreds of years to morph into something different or whatever else. So this idea, this nation that we live in is 240 something years old. It's like we're fucking still in our infancy, right?
Yeah.
But so much radical change has happened. And so I look at it from the perspective of, I believe that any machine can be broken. And what I mean by this is I don't care what kind of machine it is, I can break my TV, I can break this computer. Hell, a $300 million, commercial airliner can literally go down because of a $5 hose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I look at it like people have said for years and years and years, our system is too big and it can't whatever, and it can't be changed. And I don't believe that. I truly believe that somebody needs to drop a rock into the middle of this machine and break it, and have people like you and I who are out doing what normal people, the 320 something million Americans are doing, which is working and fucking and loving our family and hunting and shooting and gathering and eating and everything else. Like, we're the people. We the people are the people. We the people are the majority. And there's been an idea for years and years and years that 535 congressmen and senators and the president somehow have the final say, somehow have the ability to rule and govern our lives. And I don't believe that. And so when he decided to step down, I'm like, this is what I believe, and I'm fairly certain that a lot of other people believe it. Why not do this and give it a whirl?
So you're running for Congress. Have you faced any resistance throughout the process so far?
Tons.
Yeah.
Tons.
How have you handled that? Like, I feel like I personally am asking questions that I already know the answer to. These are just, I want to reiterate, like, for the podcast, because I want, if the number 2 state that's listening to my podcast is Utah, I want to share this. This is, to be quite honest, everyone, this is the reason this podcast like actually came about was Sean had a 30 minutes Ask Me Anything, and I was like, gosh, this is my chance. Like, I'm in the den, and I didn't want to ask there, but this is you've intrigued me. I've watched your family come together around the outdoors, and I just felt like this would be really great. And I was like, hey, I would love to have you on this podcast. It is, it's around hunting, it's around the brand, but it's more importantly around the people behind the brands. And you, Sean Whalen, are a brand. And the more I listen to Andy Frisella, we are, I think it was something, I was watching a live video of you, and somebody said, I'm a businessman. No, I'm a businessman. Like you, yeah. We are our own brands. And so this whole podcast, just for everyone listening, this came about because I stepped out of my comfort zone another time, and I asked Sean, could we do a podcast? Actually, the number 2 state that's listening to this podcast is Utah. I'd like to talk politics. I'd like to, get your input on there. And you said, let's do it. And I don't really know where I was going with that, other than I wanted people to know the process of this and why I want to bring up politics in Congress, because this is,
There's been a ton of resistance, and not from like the sense that you would think like I've got all these skeletons coming out of my closet, because they're all already out there. Anybody who Googles me knows that I went through a bankruptcy, went through a divorce, that I was an asshole, that I made a lot of money, I lost a lot of money. But the resistance has come more in the form of, I'm not a politician.
Right.
I don't feel like it. I don't smell like it. I don't talk like it. I don't act like it. I act like me. And when I get up there with other people, like the other day, we were sitting there with there's 6 of us, basically the 6 candidates that are in, and really there's only like 3 of us that are kind of, I don't want to say matter, but really matter, that have a chance.
Right.
They're talking about taxes and what we would do about taxes and how to fix the tax situation and the tax problem. And, everybody gets up and they give their, we need to be fiscally responsible, and we've got to blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to go to D.C. and I'm going to work with everybody. And I just got up and I said, how about we stop spending so much damn money first? And it, like, literally everybody in the place started clapping. They're like, yeah, and it's just common sense thinking. It's common sense talking. And I think, candidly, what Trump faced was he didn't look like a politician. He didn't smell like a politician. He didn't act like a politician. But after a while, people were like, shit, man.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of like what he has to say. I don't know how he's going to build a wall. He probably doesn't know how he's going to build a wall. But I think a wall's a good idea.
Right.
And I think that's what, my biggest resistance is, especially here in Utah, because it's a very, very conservative state. It's a very Republican state. It's a very religious state.
Well, you don't define yourself as a Republican or a Democrat, right?
Well, I'm a registered Republican. I've been a registered Republican since I've been 18, but I consider myself an independent conservative. Like I've been some issues that the Republicans
on both
don't
sides
believe in. You know what I mean? I'm very fiscally conservative. I want to see the government spending slashed by like 70% I want to see, you know, a consumption tax or a flat tax. I believe that everybody should be able to have guns who's legally capable of having guns in all 50 states, you know. But then again, if Bob and Tom want to go get married, I don't fucking care if Bob and Tom go get married. That's not a Republican thing. That's more of a Democrat, you know, liberal type of mentality. But I think more and more people are coming around to that. Like more and more people are like, I don't identify with a party. I identify with common sense. And that's a hard nut to crack. That's a hard shift because for however long we've been, you're one or the other. We see that today in social media. We see that in our media period. Like you're either a conservative or you're a liberal. You're either a Republican or you're a Democrat. And I'm like, dude, I'm just a dude who thinks the way that he thinks, and I'm going to share with you. And so my biggest battle, my biggest hurdle with this campaign is that a majority of people are sheep, and they will jump into the voting box and they will just find the R and they'll just push straight R.
Yeah.
They'll vote for everybody with the R because that's just what we do. That's just normal. That's what a Republican's supposed to do, is support the Republicans, vote for the Republicans. And I'm like, well, what if the Republican's an asshole? Like, how does it work for us sending all these Republicans back to D.C. when we just passed $20 trillion with the stroke of a pen? How's that working out for us? So the biggest challenge that I face, the biggest resistance is more in that I'm running as an unaffiliated candidate, not an independent, completely unaffiliated, simply because the independent party is an actual party. And I was like, if I'm not going to run as a Republican, I want to run it in, you know, unaffiliated. You know, there's certain reasons in Utah that I needed to do that because I wouldn't have made it through a convention or a primary, simply because I'm the bearded guy with tattoos that says fuck.
Right.
And the average person's like, oh my gosh, whoa. But I think the more we listened to Trump over the 18 months that he campaigned, the more we were like, oh, wow, I actually like this guy. And I feel like, you know, that's what a lot of people here are looking for, not just in Utah, but everywhere in general. People are looking for heroes. We're looking for somebody to stand up. We're looking for somebody that's actually going to represent us and not like the bureaucratic bullshit that we've been used to for the last 100 years. And I happen to be that guy, but you know, I got to get the message out. I got to warm people up and get people to believe, not necessarily in politics, but in who I am, and that I'm going to go to D.C. and legitimately punch D.C. in the face. Like, it's what needs to be done. That's the only way anything's going to happen.
So I've seen some of your videos that I've followed on Facebook and Instagram, and then on YouTube. There's something that I wanted to ask. Do you have, like, knowing you for, I feel like I've known you from this outside realm before the den, and then in the den I feel like it's been a lot closer. Knowing you as a person now, are people blushing whenever you're up there giving your speeches? Or like, are they appalled by like how honest and true you are? Because I've found that the more I've become honest and true, not only with myself but others around me, it creates a shock and a silence at the same time.
Truth is a massively powerful tool. Mm-hmm. We think that everybody's telling the truth, but most people aren't.
Right.
Truth is extremely polarizing too. And so when I say what I say, most people are used to being lied to. We've been programmed to be comfortable, and lies, are comfortable, right? I mean, that's what most people would rather be comfortable than a lie with a lie than be uncomfortable with the truth. And I'm the exact opposite. I'd rather be uncomfortable knowing the truth than be nice and warm and snuggly and cozy with somebody bullshitting me. And so I'm finding the more I speak, the more I do stuff like, Trump campaigned for almost 2 years, 19 months. This special election that I'm in right now is literally like 3, right? Wow. And so the uphill battle is huge. I know it. We all know it. It is what it is. But the more I meet people, and the more people that meet me, I think the general consensus is like, wow, I mean, you're the same asshole in person as you are online. Like, you're not any different. This isn't some fictional character. Like, I could sit here and smoke my pipe. I can fucking be hanging out with my kids, and I'm the same dude. I just I'm going to tell you what I really think. I'm going to tell you what I really feel. And I don't give a shit either way if you like it or not. My job, my goal, my purpose is not to make you warm and cozy. My purpose is to just share my truth. And I do know that some people will be totally on board with that. And I know that it will shock other people. And candidly, those people that are shocked by it, I think the more they hear it, the more they're like, oh, shit, well, maybe it's something that I'm doing, or maybe it's something that I'm thinking. But I don't expect everybody to agree with me. I don't expect everybody to buy into what I'm saying and doing. But I do know that, the more I share me, the more real I am, the more raw I am. It definitely shocks people for sure. There's definitely people like, oh my gosh, she's so abrasive. But at the end of the day, it's like, I would just rather get my point across in 30 seconds than spend 6 hours trying to like manipulate and swoon and
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that.
Yeah.
It's just how I am. It's my nature. What I'm going to do. It's what I'm going to do with my kids, with politics, with everything that I do. That's just how I am.
We're reaching, an hour and a half, and you've taken a freaking hell of a time, coming on this podcast. How can somebody donate to your campaign? What's the best way?
Everyone listening should donate to the campaign.
Okay, there we go.
It's the biggest. I mean, I'll be completely candid, man. One of the hardest things that and this being the den, because I reached out and shared this with the den the other day. I have a really hard time asking for help.
Yeah.
And my campaign manager has been like, look, bro, you need to raise a lot of money. Like, if you're going to actually do this, you have to raise a lot of money. And I'm like, fuck all the money. I got social media. And he's like, yeah, but the problem is, in order to get your messages to people, to literally hundreds of thousands that don't already follow you, you're going to have to target them and spend money on ads and promote things
to them.
Can't I just have my whole tribe like vote for me and then we win? So 100% of the money that we've raised and that we need to raise, by the end of the month is going to just a massive launch, a massive bomb that we're dropping in October, which is going to cost us 6 figures to do for us to win. And I'm going to have to have name recognition, which means people are going to have to hear my message. They're going to have to know who I am, because I have this notion that 28 million people just watched this one video that I did. Everybody knows who I am, but hardly anybody knows who I am. And there's a lot of people in Utah that have no freaking clue who I am. So spreading that message and getting that out there, plain and simple, it costs a lot of money. And so any dollar donated is I'm extremely grateful for. It's extremely valuable to me. It's like gold.
Yeah.
Whether somebody donates $10 or $5,000 or whatever. But you can donate. You can find all my political stuff, everything on SeanWhalen.com. You can donate there. You can find my entire agenda. You can reach me there. You can request a yard sign there. Which by the way, we got a whole bunch of yard signs coming in this week. So yeah, people just go to SeanWhalen.com. We're going to do a launch actually here later in the week, probably Thursday, where we're trying to raise $100,000, and so I'm going to try and get 1,000 people that'll donate $100 to help us get there, and then then we're going to drop a bomb in Utah, plain and simple. Like, you won't be able to go anywhere in any social media platform or drive down any street without seeing Sean Whalen all over the place. But that's what it's going to take for us to win this.
That's awesome, man. Well, on top of my $100, if for those of you who are listening, it's Sean Whalen, SeanWhalen.com. I know Sean spelt a couple different ways.
Yeah, I spelled it the right way.
I don't have a problem with people spelling my name right. I have a problem with people calling me Jason instead of Justin. Like, hey, I'm Justin. Hey, Jason, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Dude, this is awesome. There's something that I always ask every guest. If there's a question you have for me, and I feel out of place even asking this, but out of ritual, if there's a question you have for me before, we kind of recap and wrap this thing up.
Will you donate to my campaign?
I already said yes to that.
Done. Question. That's the first question I thought of. Just asked. Plain and simple.
Oh, I love it, man. You're real honest, raw, relevant, and you're straight to the point.
Well, dude, I love the podcast. I love what you're doing, man. Keep pushing, keep doing it, keep getting cool people on here, keep having conversations, and it's the only way to grow and spread and get uncomfortable, you know?
That's
so,
awesome, man.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.